Welcome to Trail Time Stories. We hope you enjoy the scenery as we read stories that step out of the normal day-to-day mundane routine and help put ourselves in the character of those that have been briefly pulled from their sanctuary of safety and all too often times their sanity. If you like the content, please like and subscribe as there will be much more content in the near future. The Strange Disappearance of Brandon Swanson. Brandon Swanson was a native of Marshall, Minnesota, which is in Lyon County in the southwestern part of the state. He was born January the 30th of 1989 and was 19 years of age when he disappeared. He graduated from Marshall High School in 2007, then studied wind turbines for a year at the Minnesota West Community and Technical College in Canby, Minnesota. His classes there ended for the year on May the 13th, 2008. Swanson stayed in Canby for the evening to celebrate with friends and was observed to drink alcoholic beverages at two different parties that night, but his friends stated that he had not drank enough to make him appear visibly intoxicated. Swanson left Canby before midnight and proceeded to drive the 30 miles home. He was driving a Chevrolet Lumina, and just before 2 a.m., he called his parents on his cell phone to inform them that he had driven his car off the road and into a ditch, and that his car was stuck and that he couldn't get it back onto the road. He said that he was not injured and asked if they would mind picking him up. His parents, Annette and Brian Swanson, left in their pickup truck and headed to where Brandon said he was. They kept him on the phone despite the occasional hang-ups and drops associated with cell phone use. Brandon stayed with his car and tried several times to signal them by flashing his lights on and off, but they were never able to locate him, and he appeared to have never seen their lights either. Brandon finally gave up and told them he was leaving his car and was going to walk towards lights he could see. That led him to believe he was near Lind, a small town roughly 7 miles southwest of Marshall. He told his father to head for the parking lot of a local bar and wait for him there. Brian began driving there and kept his son on the phone as he did. 47 minutes into the call, and shortly after 2:30 a.m., Brandon suddenly interrupted himself on the phone and said, "Oh shit." He was silent for the remainder of the call, until his parents hung up and attempted to call back. Brandon has not been seen or heard from since. At 6:30 a.m., his parents reported Brandon missing to the Lynn police. They were told at first that it was hardly unusual for young men that age to stay out all night after the last day of college classes. Annette Swanson specifically recalled that one of the officers said it was Brandon's right to be missing. Later that morning, the Lynn police did start a search but found no trace of Brandon in the town or outside. They requested that the Office of Lyon County Sheriff Joel Dahl assist them. To better focus the search, the sheriff's office obtained Brandon's cell phone records, which revealed that Brandon had been calling from the vicinity of Taunton along State Highway 68, the main route to Canby, northwest of Marshall, 25 miles from Lind. Searching in that area, deputies discovered Brandon's abandoned car in a ditch off a gravel road along the Lynn County line, a mile north of Highway 68, bringing the office of that county sheriff, Jack Bezicki, into the investigation as well. He told the media that the Lumina had gotten hung up on the top of an incline at the edge of the road, not seriously enough to damage the car, but enough to keep the wheels from touching the ground on that side. There was nothing else found amiss with the car, and due to the grass and gravel in the area surrounding it, there were no tracks and thus no way to tell what direction Brandon might have started walking. His cell phone call had been routed through a tower at the intersection of County Routes 3 and 10 near Minneota, another town along Highway 68. By May 15th, the call had been determined to have come from within 5 miles of the tower. Searchers were concentrating their efforts there. Since part of that circle included Yellow Medicine County to the north, authorities from that jurisdiction also took part. From that area, Dahl noted, a red light atop a Taunton grain elevator could be seen. It was possible, he thought, that was what Brandon had seen that led him to believe Lind was within walking distance. Ground searches were being complemented with a flyover by an aerial team. Search dogs were also brought in from the Twin Cities. A team of bloodhounds from nearby Cottington County, South Dakota, picked up a 3-mile trail that largely followed the field roads west-northwest to an abandoned farm, then along the Yellow Medicine River to a point where it appeared to enter the stream. Brandon had mentioned passing fences and hearing nearby water, his father recalled. On the theory that Brandon might have drowned, boats from the state's Department of Natural Resources were deployed along the river, and gates were installed. In some areas in Lincoln County, the water had been 10 feet deep in the morning of the disappearance, but had gone down since then, Dahl noted. Deputies also walked the riverbanks on horses, and all-terrain vehicles were deployed in the surrounding area. However, Dahl ruled out a more organized, extensive ground search. After the original search found no sign of Swanson, most efforts were discontinued. Sheriff Bezicki continued to walk the 2 miles of the Yellow Medicine in that area every day for 30 days. The Swansons left their porch light on all night, every night, as a symbol of their hope that Brandon would eventually return or be found. They still do. Searches resumed late that fall after fields planted shortly after the disappearance had been harvested. Dogs on those searches continued to follow scents of human remains into an area northwest of Porter that had not been searched earlier. Efforts picked up again in the spring after snow melted but before planting, a cycle that continued through 2011. By that time, 122 square miles had been searched. In 2010, the Minnesota Bureau of Criminal Apprehension took over as lead agency on the case. It set up a tip line. By 2015, 90 leads had been reported that way. By that point, when official searches resumed, the area of interest had moved toward Mud Creek, a tributary of the Yellow Medicine north and northwest of Porter. While the trail followed by one of the dogs went to the Yellow Medicine, and despite her son's last known words, Annette Swanson does not think he drowned there. After following the scent of the water, that dog continued up across the other side and along the riverbank to another gravel road, where it continued north towards the Yellow Medicine County line and ended. There really is nothing to indicate that he's in the river, she told CNN. Brian Swanson also recalls that any alcohol his son had consumed earlier in the evening notwithstanding, he did not seem disoriented or confused during their phone conversations. If Swanson is still alive, there are other possibilities, although they appear remote. He could have intentionally disappeared, but his parents do not believe he would have done that. Bezicki said he could not rule out foul play, even though there was no evidence of it. Someone could have been in the shadows, and they got him that way, he speculated. After the searches, Annette Swanson was still struck by the initial response of the Lynn police that her son had, and I quote, a right to be missing, end quote, when she told them how old he was. I'm his mother, and I knew something was horribly wrong, she recalled later. She and Brian began lobbying for changes in state law that would require an investigation into the case of a missing adult to begin as soon as it is reported, much as was already required in cases of possibly abducted children. Annette met with Marty Schaefer, minority leader of the State House of Representatives at the time, whose district included Marshall, in a local restaurant. The two talked about the problem she had experienced with the police when she reported her son missing. She knew it wouldn't help in her son's case, but that it could help others in the future, Seifert recalled in 2015. Seifert introduced a bill called Brandon's Law that would make the required changes by amending the law governing the state's existing missing child program to change the word child to person. He recalled considerable resistance at first from the state's law enforcement community as it was developed in committee. Part of it had to do with privacy, especially regarding cell phones, he told the Marshall Independent. Technology was emerging then, so there were discussions about privacy and when can they ping you and when they can't. Dennis Frederickson introduced a companion bill in the state Senate after it passed both houses, the House unanimously, in May 2009. Governor Tim Pawlenty signed it into law with the Swansons and their daughter Jamie in attendance at the ceremony. The effect of the change also required that police, in addition to determining in their preliminary investigation that the reported person is indeed missing, determine whether that person is potentially in dangerous circumstances. They must also notify other nearby law enforcement agencies promptly. Brandon's law also clarifies that the agency taking the report is the lead agency investigating the case. The absence of the distinction had created some problems in the later phases of the initial search when 3 different counties were involved. Police were no longer allowed to refuse a report based on an initial belief that no criminal activity was involved. The brevity of the interval since the person was last seen, the possibility that the person may have intentionally disappeared, or the lack of a relationship between the missing person and the reporter. Following the governor's signature, the law took effect at the beginning of July 2009. 4 other states have passed similar laws. Seifert left the legislature in 2010, but he still has the pen Pawlenty used to sign the bill into law. I consider it one of the most important bills I authored in my 14 years. It will save lives. Brandon has been missing for nearly 13 years now, and this is one of the strangest missing person cases that I have come across and wanted to share it. I feel it is very strange indeed that Brandon was on the phone with his parents at the time of his disappearance, and the fact that he reported seeing lights that gave him the impression that there was a town within walking distance when only one red light at the top of a single grain elevator was visible from the location of the car. In my mind, one single red light would mean just that: a silo, grain elevator, or perhaps a cell phone or radio tower that could be placed most anywhere on the landscape, not just indicative of being near a town. Please keep in mind that Brandon and his family are real people, and that this was a tragedy that no one wants to experience. And let's please keep them in our hearts and prayers, hoping that one day this mystery can be solved to the resolution of all involved, including the many persons who participated in the many searches for Brandon Swanson. Thank you for watching and listening to today's video and story. We know your time is valuable and really do appreciate that you spent some of it with us today. If you haven't already, then please like and subscribe, so it helps us greatly. We hope to see you again soon. Have a great day or evening. Trail Time Stories out.